Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Lindsey and my BFF, Krista.
So glad you're here. So grateful for your listenership over the years. We love y'all very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being a part of our lives and our community and for riding with us for so long through all the phases and seasons of life and all the evolution that we've done together.
Yeah.
You and I, and then also our community.
Quite the evolution.
Yeah.
I feel like more often than not, people have been with us since the very beginnings, and we get messages all the time like, I've been with you from 2016, I've gotten married, or I've moved across, like all these transitions that we've been through seemingly together. And yeah, it's been so fun.
It's been beautiful.
Yeah. Our book is out now.
Yes.
If
you haven't gotten it yet, it's time.
It's time. almost30.com/book or anywhere books are sold. It's at bookstores. It's online. But we just had a blast on tour, meeting you all and talking to you all about the book. And we haven't been in person in quite some time. So it was really, really beautiful. And thank you just for all of the messages and response to this book. We're super excited and proud that it's hit in the way that we intended.
Yeah. It's been so beautiful. So thank you. And I wouldn't, this conversation today on depression, I would say that the book process was, if we're talking about mental health, was mentally challenging for me.
Tell me more.
My feeling, how do I even start to put into words? There's points in time in my life with mental health, I'm very self-anchored. I feel very good. And there are moments in time where I feel like the voices in the head are just winning.
Of course.
Not enoughness, comparison, like you're a failure. It's never enough. All of that. And it's so hard because sometimes it's like, you just got to wrangle and sit with that and just be with it and process it. But it brought up so much for me just because it was such a vulnerable time to put yourself out there. It was such an exciting time. It felt like something that I was really excited about, something that I was really scared to do. I just put really high expectations on myself. And I think I do that and then I expect myself to fail. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting around something like a book, where I think there are some perceived milestones that you should hit with a book, whether it's like selling a certain amount of copies or hitting the bestseller list or whatever. And you kind of lose sight of the fact that you wrote a book. You wrote a book.
Someone said that. They're like, you've already won. You wrote the book. I'm like, what?
Exactly. I think I said that to you. I said, we did it. This is success. That's true. It's an incredible accomplishment. And that's why, I loved the writing process. It wasn't always easy by any means, but I really loved being in the process. And then when you come out of it and you're kind of on the other side and you're in editing, you're in the marketing push, you're in all of these things that are exciting, but it's stressful. It's really stressful because to your point, you just question whether this is even good. Are we worthy of this? Is this is this going to be a failure comparing to everyone else that has their books out and doing this and that? It's just, there's always opportunity to compare and tear yourself down a little bit.
I know.
Because I think that's much easier for the mind rather than having faith that your work will speak for itself.
It's interesting in life too, because people always have their things that they compare. Mine's always success. And other things I'm like relationships or family or friend, things like other stuff. I'm like, mine's always success.
Yeah.
It's exhausting at this point.
Yeah.
And I was even thinking about, I was at the Happier Grocery getting my latte and I was talking to the barista and he was like, I'm so grateful we're talking. I've been having a rough day and you just have such a really kind, warm energy. And it's funny because the only reason why I'm saying that is because I had been beating myself up. Like before I started talking to him, I was like, da, 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 da. And I'm like, oh, I'm being so kind to
other
this man
people, yeah.
and so mean to myself inside. And I was like, oh, that's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not that I should beat him up. I should be mean to him. he should get the worst
treat
of
him
me.
equally.
No, but I just was like, wow, I need to do that to myself too, of like whatever
Yes.
that kindness is,
Yes.
you know. But I think that's for a lot of people. You know, I think a lot of people struggle and don't really know where to go or what to do. And it's tough. So I'm really grateful to have this conversation.
Yeah, today we have on Dr. Judith Joseph. Her new book, High Functioning, is out, and it's all about high functioning depression. So it's like those people who on the outside are successful and seemingly have it all together and are doing the most. And behind the mask is a person who's really struggling, barely surviving in a lot of ways. Um, and it's it's really hard to know what to do about it, you know, because like so many things in a person like that, their life are together, you know, but it's those pieces of their mental health and, you know, patterns in relationships that like you you can't really like put on a to-do list. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's something that requires maybe a few of the things that the world can see stopping and you actually focusing on it and tending to it. Um, but she's been practicing and she has her own research lab. So there's just a ton of research in this book that I think will really
Wow.
ground us in these concepts.
So the difference would be that previously with depression, you kind of would exit life and you stop working, you stop doing things that you love.
Yeah.
And this is someone that's still doing a lot, but is really struggling.
Very high functioning. Yeah. So
Okay.
people don't think that they have depression or in a depressed
Wow.
state because if they look at their life, they're like, yeah, but like I have all these accomplishments and I
Right.
am really doing really well at work. But so much of that, and I think we've talked about this a lot on the show, and we talk about it in our book, like this idea of just kind of abandoning ourselves in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, you know, and not really listening to that inner voice, that whisper that says, like, you know what, like this needs tending. Like this is actually something you need to focus on rather than all the things that everyone else can see.
Wow. What would someone feel like if they were high functioning depressed?
Someone would feel
I'm literally like unwell.
Do you feel restless like when you're not busy?
I am.
Like does busyness kind of help you cope?
I'm
Or
aware of that.
Mm-hmm. But
I don't know, man.
yeah.
Ask another one.
Do you struggle to find joy in like genuinely happy moments? I feel like you do. You're able to do
I
that.
live on that frequency.
Yeah. I sometimes struggle with that. Where I'm like
Yeah, you
able to
suppress your joy.
access joy in those really, really happy moments because I get overwhelmed. I actually think mine's like actually the doing depresses me.
That's real
Honestly.
talk.
Yeah, like the doing actually depresses me. Like the certain types of doing really depresses me.
That's so real.
Yeah,
you were born to exist.
yeah, you're like on a beach. Chilling.
You just were born to like just make life better for people. You know, just like exist beautifully and lovingly
Yeah, still
in
figuring
your
it out,
perfect
but
frequency.
but yeah, I find myself when I'm in that, I have to be mindful. I have to find ways to like be centered, be quiet, be chill, because it can kind of overwhelm me. But yeah, it's very sneaky. But she talks about the science of our happiness and what kind of helps us to really support that true, genuine internal happiness that just bleeds out. And she uses 5 V's. So I'll just quickly share them, but she goes over them in the episode. Validation. So acknowledging and accepting your emotions. So this is like your own validation about your past traumas and present pain. Venting. So being able to actually like letting out your frustration. So I think high functioning people are just like go, 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 do, do, do. Like, I'm good, and don't actually let it out and express and vent.
Yeah.
Values, um, just really identifying your priorities.
Yeah.
And I think high functioning people can get confused and be like, well, success at work is one of my priorities. And
Right.
then it kind of pushes other things that are more important down. Vitals. So just knowing that like the body is so connected to the mind and checking in. We talk about this all the time. Like, how's that nourishment? Have you had water today? How's your sleep? Like that mind
Mm-hmm.
body connection. Um, and then vision, plan for and celebrate successes, milestones, and everyday joy.
Mm.
But I love her. She's phenomenal and just so clear and well spoken, and I think really will speak to a lot of people in our audience who
Wow.
might be feeling this. So the book is High Functioning: Overcome Your Hidden Depression and Reclaim Your Joy.
Wow. I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, it's really good. I'll give it to you.
Okay.
I have it. Yeah.
I'm scared.
Forward by Mel Robbins, a girl.
Our gal. I wonder how this hit her. Or if she worked
Oh, I'm
with her
sure. Yeah.
in
Shoot.
this. I wonder if
Mhm.
maybe. Huh. Interesting. Okay, I can't wait. I'm excited to listen to. So share this with a friend. Definitely a good conversation starter. Good thing
Mhm.
to discuss in community, especially if you are struggling or if you have someone that is struggling.
Yeah.
You can even bring some of the V's to conversation together. I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much for buying our book, for being a part of our community, and for being a part of our lives. Morning Microdose is our second show. And then find us on YouTube. We're on YouTube now in video, so you can come hang, see our facial expressions, see our guests, see our
Mhm.
fits.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for being a part of our lives, our community, and for subscribing.
Love you.
This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack partner. IQ Bar is the better for you plant protein based snack made with brain boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. You know the one. These bars are clean. We're talking like no gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, or weird sweeteners. Just really high quality ingredients that support your body and brain. I've been keeping them in my diaper bag, in the car, in the purse, everywhere, because I love to have these, whether it's before a workout or just like a mid afternoon snack. Or if I don't get to eat breakfast, I'll have this on the go. And when IQ Bar sent me their sampler pack, I immediately became obsessed with a few more flavors. I always love the banana nut, but the peanut butter chip, oh, it is nostalgic in the best way. It tastes like a treat from my childhood, honestly. And then I also love the lemon blueberry. It's like very bright, very zesty, and so good with like just a little afternoon matcha or whatever I'm craving. But I love how they make me feel. I'm not hangry 20 minutes later. I don't crash. I actually feel energized, focused, and very satisfied. So right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all products plus free shipping. Just text almost to 64000. That's almost to 64,000. That's ALMOST to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. There has never been a better time to take control of your health. I feel like we're living in a time where we have just so much available to us, and it is on us to do that. And when I think about my health, I look back and realize, wow, it has all started in my gut. And I know we've heard about it, but it is so true. Listen, like processed foods, pesticides in your food, antibiotics, stress at work, and even toxins in the air you breathe can overwhelm your digestive system. Yeah, that miserable post meal bloat, indigestion, gas, and more are all signs that your gut needs some help. Our bodies are literally being attacked on a daily basis. So, what can we do to fight back? Luckily, we have Just Thrive Probiotic, the only clinically proven probiotic and antioxidant comprised of science backed strains to keep the gut healthy and balanced. And did you know that most probiotics on the market die in your stomach acid? Yeah, I know. I'm sure you've tried a lot of them, and I'm sure a lot of them haven't worked. But the ones you know by name or see on TV, those are the ones. But Just Thrive survives 100%. It's a probiotic that actually works. For you, that means better digestion, healthy immunity, more energy, and easy weight management. It comes in a capsule or berry flavored gummy, so there's an option for everyone in the family. Plus, it's backed by an industry leading guarantee. Ready to transform your health in 2025? Take the 90-day challenge. love the way you feel, or get a full product refund, no questions asked. To join the gut health revolution and take control of your health today, you can visit justthrivehealth.com and save 20% on your first 90-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic with promo code ALMOST30. Don't forget to check out all their other all-natural, clinically proven products too, like their newest product, Digestive Bitters, Focus, and Memory, Gluten Away, and more. That's justthrive.com. Promo code is ALMOST30.
I'm really thrilled to have you in person. I always find these conversations are just so much better when we're sitting across from each other. I was telling you that I was on the phone with Krista before this interview, and we were laughing, probably half crying. We were like, are we both high functioning, depressed? You know what I mean? Like, just, it's a very confusing thing, I think, for me to realize or understand. And then once I read your book and understood just the depth and the complexities of this experience, I was like, wow, a lot of things make sense. And a lot of people in my life make a lot more sense. So anyway, your new book is High Functioning, Overcome Your Hidden Depression and Reclaim Your Joy. I would love to just kick it off learning about your specific work in the world and how you came to write this book.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me.
You're so
I'm
welcome.
excited about this conversation. And so not far from here, I have Research Lab where I enroll patients. I use something called the DSM-5. It's like the Bible of psychiatry. It's really a big book, but there's a section in there focusing on major depressive disorder, which is clinical depression as we know it. And you can have all of these symptoms of depression and go down the checkbox. And when I'm with patients since 2020, they'll check things off like low concentration, low mood, low energy, feeling cranky and irritable, not enjoying things, symptoms of depression. But then when you get to the bottom of the checklist, if they don't meet criteria for a lack of functioning, right, or if they're not in significant distress, then you say, all right, we'll come back when you're breaking down. And that's just how the mental health system is. Right now, we are set up to only focus on people once they have lost functioning or in crisis. And there's this queue of people just waiting to break down. And I kept seeing people coming in with these symptoms and also something called anhedonia, which a lot of people don't know about. But in research, we know this word and we use it. But people don't realize that when they feel meh or blah or lack of interest in things that used to light them up, that's actually a possible symptom of depression called anhedonia. So I was seeing a lot of these symptoms and people who were over-functioning, right? Showing up to work, showing up for their family, being the rock, and busying themselves instead of processing what was happening with them. And they were high-functioning depressed, right? And I thought, well, okay, if I'm seeing this in my practice, I wonder, how many people out there are experiencing this, right? So at the time I was teaching a course at NYU. I still teach this course. I developed it about 10 years ago, where I teach doctors how to talk to press. And they were saying, well, most of our clients are getting information online because of the pandemic. They're not really watching TV. They're on their phones.
Right.
So can you teach me how to use socials? So I created a reel on what I thought high-functioning depression looked like in my practice. And that reel was seen by over 20 million people around the world. I was like astounded. I blew up overnight. Wow. And I just thought, okay, this is a thing, it's not just a couple of people in my practice. And it goes a little bit deeper because I was feeling this way too. I was, running a lab at the time, married, now I'm divorced, have a small child, have a team depending on me. I was pushing through pain too. And I was feeling blah or mess. So if I was experiencing this, people in my practice were experiencing it, and 20 million viewers were experiencing it, the work had to be done. So I did the first ever research study in the world on high-functioning depression and wrote this book so that people could learn about signs and symptoms before they break down, before their bodies, break down, before they have a mental breakdown, before they engage in using substances like being on your phone too much or using actual substances to soothe, so that they have tools to heal before they're in crisis.
Yeah. And I'm curious, in your research and just, sitting with clients, do you feel like this is a
now thing, like in this day and age? Or do you feel like it is a specific flavor of high functioning in different generations? Because I'm thinking about just how now we have technology, we have a lot of ways to numb out, to just go, go, go. That's kind of our culture. But then I also see this like across generations. So I guess what have you concluded about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first started putting out these posts, I would get several similar responses. Like one person would say, "Do you have a camera in my home? Like, how do you know what my day looks like?" Another person would say, "Dude, that's capitalism, right?" And to them, I said, "Well, no, I don't have a camera in your home, but your experience is very similar to many people's experiences. You are not alone," which is really validating. And then to the number two, I said, "Absolutely right. It's part of capitalism. This is we are creatures that have something called a biopsychosocial component that makes up the science of our own happiness." And what I mean by that is that, happiness is well studied, joy is studied, but people don't understand their unique science, right? So the science of your happiness is going to be different than the science of my happiness, right? Why? We're both humans, and we both have biopsychosocial components, but our biopsychosocial components are going to be different, right? So the social component is what's happening in your day-to-day life. Like years ago, we didn't have technology, but now we do. So having access to nonstop tech, to nonstop access to work, right? To nonstop access to bad news is a component of our, biopsychosocial, specifically the social part, that's the environment. Whereas if you went to maybe, I don't know, like some remote part of South America, right? That person's biopsychosocial is not going to be the same because socially they may not have access to tech. They may not have access to these stressors. So it's a bit of both. And then biologically, you and I are both women, but we have different medical conditions. We have different, family history. You may have a condition that I don't have. I have low thyroid that puts me at risk, but someone else who's listening may have another biological risk factor, right? Understand what that loading is for you, And then the psychological component is our past trauma. So my past trauma is different than yours. My attachment style may be different than yours. My resiliency factors may be different than yours. Understanding how that psychological component plays into my science of my happiness is important. So I really wanted readers to understand how they're so unique and special and how they have to kind of really take stock of their biopsychosocial model so that they can understand the science of their happiness and that they can apply these tools that I provide in the book to increase joy.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. It is complex. It can't be just this like one size fits all or one thing will cure you or make you feel better. And I think we're a society of like convenience and quickness. So I think that's something that we always desire. Like, what can I do to fix it?
Yeah.
And going layer by layer, is not easy work, but it's worth it and more sustainable. I guess for someone who is not sure if they have high functioning depression, can you walk us through just some like signs that they could be experiencing this?
Yeah. So the symptoms of depression are what I described earlier. You have possibly 5 of these symptoms for more than 2 weeks, right? 2 or more weeks, such as low concentration. So that's like inability to focus, low appetite or a change in appetite, poor sleep or not feeling rested when you wake up, at times feeling hopeless, at times having a low or irritable mood, feeling like you're restless. Like when you're not busy, you feel empty or restless, right? And that's something that people are like, oh my gosh, I never knew that was a thing, but I feel that way. That's why I'm always busy, right? Feeling guilty. A lot of the people with high functioning depression that I've worked with are people pleasers. So they feel this internal guilt to do things, bend over backwards when it's actually harmful for them, right? And then anhedonia, which is, I think, one of the most telling symptoms, right? You're going through the motions. You don't enjoy things the way that you used to. You're still doing them because you kind of have to, right? But, that's not what life is about. We're human beings. We're on this earth for a reason. There's only one of us, and there will only ever be one of us. I mean, that's fascinating to me. And we were built with the DNA for joy, right? We all have dopamine in our brains. So being able to access joy is important, and it's what makes life worth living, right?
Yeah.
So if you're finding that you have these symptoms of depression and you're not finding joy in life, but you're still functioning or you're over functioning, it could be that you are avoiding a painful trauma or a painful past. And one of the symptoms of trauma is avoidance. So classically, what you'd see in trauma survivors is that they don't want to deal with certain situations or people or places because they don't want to be triggered. But another classic trauma response is busying yourself to avoid. So you don't sit still because you don't want to feel pain. You don't want to feel discomfort. So what do? You burn yourself out. You overperform. You're never sitting still because God forbid you sat still. You might break down and cry, you know? You may feel so helpless that you just don't know how to process that feeling. But if you don't process that pain and you keep numbing it, you're numbing yourself to joy as well. And what type of life is that? And I know a lot of people like this, you know, they'll say like, no one ever explained it to me because it's not a thing doctors ask about, right? You go to a doctor, they'll be like, well, are you going to work? Are you taking care of your family? Right. You know, like, well, are you in crisis? No, well, we'll come back when things worsen. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. People are like, I went to my doctor, I felt the way that you felt, or I went to my therapist and they were just like, well, you're technically not, you know, meeting criteria for anything. So when things do fall apart, then we can do something. It's like, well, that's not right, you know?
There's not a lot of room for nuance.
There isn't, but we are experiencing that in longevity science, right? You're seeing a renaissance where people are like, oh, don't wait for a heart attack. Look at these markers now. Like, don't wait for osteoporosis. Like, get on HRT or think about, you know, menopause supportive care now, right? There's this renaissance in longevity science, but we're not there with mental health. Right now, we are like, when people are in crisis, we'll help them, but let's not prevent the crisis, which I think is a broken model.
Yeah, and I think that really feeds into how people don't even know that they have it, right? Because I think people would look around, say, you know, at any job and any high stress job and see their coworkers kind of doing and feeling the same way that they are, you know, and maybe not lit up by what they're doing, but doing the most and working themselves into the ground. And, you know, I think when you surround yourself with people and circumstances that kind of almost validate in the negative way what you're doing, where it's like, this is normal. Oh, everyone's feeling this? Okay. Like maybe I should just keep going and this is just what it is.
Yeah.
So I think we're unaware and or we're just settling because we're like, well, I guess everyone kind of feels this way.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm speaking from, you know, New York City where I think a lot of people are kind of in this state of doing the most and really like not being able to like ground down in how they actually feel.
Well, you know, I'm glad you brought up cities because I think a lot of people do feel that way when they're in cities. It is literally a rat race.
Yes.
There are rats and it is a rat race, you know? And I think people end up feeling like initially excited to move to a big city or to have the, you know, the good fortune to work in a big city. They've made it. But then they go through this existential crisis if they haven't gone through one in adolescence, right? And they're just like, well, wait, so I worked hard just to go to a small box and stare at a screen while I eat food that's not good for me, you know, that I can't even afford, you know? So I'm seeing a lot of this, especially in people who are in Gen Z, you know, because they have, you know, they don't have the opportunities for creating as much wealth. And I don't even think the majority of the Gen Z clients I work with, I don't even think they really want wealth. They just want to have like a decent living where they have, you know, balance, right? But they can't even obtain that because the financial system isn't the way it used to be. The job opportunities are not there. So they feel in particular, I think, hopeless. Like, why am I doing this? You know, what was the point of going to school? Why even move to a big city? Why? Like, they lied to me about my dreams, you know, it's not real. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of anhedonia and a lot of like early burnout, you know, in these populations. There's a fast turnaround in terms of starting a job and then leaving a job, you know. And so I think that talking about this is not just important from a we all deserve a happier life standpoint, but it just makes society better when we feel fulfilled, when we are able to access joy, we stay around longer, we pour into our communities, we connect better. And, I think every industry is impacted when there's a lack of joy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm a millennial. I feel like millennials, correct me if I'm wrong, feel that like pressure, and you speak about this in the book, not about millennials specifically, but I feel this, the pressure to have it all and just how it can correlate with that just intense pressure. It's like it's a pie in the sky vision of having it all, but is it realistic? And what do we have to do or sacrifice to get there? I'm wondering if that's like an outdated dream, and what can be more realistic. I guess, what would you say to someone who's kind of bringing you that frame of mind as they're approaching their life?
Yeah, I do a lot of content on generations, and I'm an elder millennial. So I'm like right on the cusp.
Totally.
And I think that when you look at generations, at least in my practice, and I treat people of all ages, my youngest client is 4 and the oldest client is 89.
Wow.
Because I do some dementia research as well. So boomers, their parents raised them in this survival mode. Their parents survived war and financial uncertainty. So it was more about like, let's survive. Let's do what we can. Less about like pleasure, more about let's just make to another day, So there's less of a reflection. And not to say that all boomers are this way, because there are some boomers who are very in touch with their psychological status and are insightful. But largely what the Pew Research shows is that they were, in survival mode about like, producing and saving, for the next generation. Gen X, they were raised in like, capitalist boom, all about like the shoulder pads and the nice cars and the wealth. And like, it was the first time there was a cell phone that you could put in your car, right? Stocks and bonds and so forth. So it's really about accumulation and less about reflection, but more about individualistic ideas. Like, I want to take care of me. I want to thrive. Whereas millennials, well, we're the first to have the internet. We're the first to have access to information. So there's this reflection, this psychological insight that started happening with our generation. And we were mounted with student loan debt. Like, we didn't have the freedom that Gen X had. Yeah. On top of it, we were entering the workplace as women, right? And we were not being offered leadership positions, but we couldn't slow down because we had to pay off our loans. And then we delayed having children because, we can't afford them, but then we run into fertility issues. So it's a very daunting, I think, generation, because we were faced with a lot of problems that the people before us didn't have. Yeah. And we're faced with the internet, the nonstop access to bad news, but also access to information, right? And I feel like Gen Z, they, face this other issue. They're digital natives, and they've always had a phone. They've always had access to information, so they can't turn it off. And partially that's a bad thing because, they feel as if they're constantly traumatized. They're getting that tertiary trauma. But it's a good thing because they have more access to people within their generation. And so they tend to not see differences the way that other generations did. Like, they don't really, when they date, they tend to date across races, across religions. They're more accepting. And for them, it's more about, well, I don't want to just be happy on my own. I want my whole community, my tribe to come with me. So there are positive and negative experiences in each generation. But I do think that millennials were hit hard with like you should want to have it all, but you really can't.
Yeah, totally. I know. I've had to like reprogram that. Okay, I've always been someone who loves the idea of adventure. Like, give me a new trail to run or a random side street to wander down, and I'm totally in. But as a mom, I've also realized the real adventure is just getting out the door with enough energy to keep up with the day. And that's where having a go-to nourishing routine honestly has saved me. Enter Kachava, aka my not-so-secret weapon. It's a whole body meal shake that somehow manages to be packed with 85 plus superfoods and still tastes really good. I'm a chocolate girl though, through and through, but sometimes I'll do the vanilla with almond milk or frozen banana and a little cinnamon. And it's like a fancy smoothie from a cafe without the $16 price tag, if you know what I mean. But what sold me, it's not just protein, though it has 25 grams of clean plant-based protein. It's also got fiber, adaptogens like maca, superfoods like sacha inchi, and even ingredients like goji berry and chia that I used to buy separately and never use, let's be honest. So I'm so happy they're in there. They're just all mixed in. I usually whip my own up with a quick breakfast or post-workout shake, and it actually fills me up without that weird powdery aftertaste I've had with other drinks. And I know you know what I mean. I feel focused, satisfied, and like I actually gave my body something it wants to say thank you for. So if you're playing curious but not fully vegan, no worries. Kachava is for everyone. Plus, they've got a love it guarantee, so it's risk-free to try. But I have a feeling you're going to get hooked. Fuel your day with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code almost30 for 15% off your next order. That's KACHAVA.com, code almost30 for 15% off. I don't know who needs to hear this, but your low energy, afternoon brain fog, or random headaches might not be from the caffeine withdrawal or lack of sleep. It could be an electrolyte imbalance. As a mom, I am constantly sweating, running around with my child. I am forgetting to drink enough water because I'm just making sure he's eating enough, drinking enough, and doing all the things. And Element, since pregnancy, honestly, has been such a game changer. It's a zero sugar electrolyte drink mix that actually works. There's no junk, no dyes, just what your body actually needs. Sodium, magnesium, and potassium in a clinically backed ratio. Right now, I am obsessed with their lemonade salts. Like, it's hands down my favorite, and it comes at a perfect time of year. It's summer where I am, and y'all, nothing beats a lemonade on a summer day. It's tart, it's salty, it's refreshing, and honestly makes staying hydrated feel like a treat. It's so easy. So every Sunday I do a really hot bath with my husband, and I'll sip it post-bath just because I'm a little dehydrated. I'll sip it during a workout, and I'll do it on a walk. And I'll even sprinkle a tiny bit in Mav's water. He loves it. Sometimes I even mix it with iced tea for a little salty Arnold Palmer situation. It's so good. And here's the best part. When you order through our link, you'll get a free sample pack with any purchase. That way you can try all the flavors and find your favorite. Just head to drinklmnt.com/almost30. That's drinkelement.com/almost30. And if you don't love it, no stress. Element will refund you, no questions asked. But trust me, you won't need that. Again, it's drinklmnt.com/almost30.
And also, I think, we want it all now. There's that like immediacy that we crave, and we forget that hopefully life is long, and it doesn't all have to happen in your 30s or 20, whatever the belief is. Yeah, I'm curious about, I was explaining to you kind of our core demo, transitioning from their 20s to their 30s, and people have been with us throughout our life of almost 30. So they're in their mid 30s-ish. And I'm curious what you've seen around that time, that late 20s transition. So we kind of like look to the astrological aspect of Saturn return, where a lot of things in your life kind of come into focus that might not be aligned, and you kind of have to like look at a lot of pieces of your life and reevaluate. So I guess as a therapist, as a psychiatrist, do you feel like there is something happening pretty consistently around that time?
Yes, I do think that there is this pressure and shame to check boxes. That's been consistently as people approach 30.
Yeah.
And, it forces people to make the wrong decision. And I've seen this. And in therapy, it's interesting because you're not allowed to like be like, oh, that guy is such a jerk. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, totally. In your mind, you can say that.
But when they finally break up, you're like, yeah, so you can't show that either. You're like, oh, okay, then, let's get you through that. But, it's so...
You can't say told you so? Leave that to the best friend. Got it. Okay.
Yes. But I see it all the time. I see really terrific people in terrible jobs and terrible friendships and terrible relationships because there's pressure to have this picture of happy. And I try to help my clients reframe what happiness is, because what I tell them is happiness is an idea and joy is an experience. And when you can grasp that, I think it really shifts things, like, so when you think of happiness, a lot of people will say, oh, happiness is when I finally finish grad school or get that job or have the partner or have the baby, have the family, right? But joy is like, when I was lonely today, did I connect with a loved one? When I was tired, did I get a rest? When I was thirsty, did that drink quench me? It's these experiences that in research, when we add up the points, that makes joy, right? So if happiness is a state and you may never get to that state, then for many people, they may never be happy, right? They're searching for something. And the research shows us that when people chase something and they think, oh, I'll be happy when, they end up not being happy even when the when happens, right? Then it's on to another one. So try to incorporate your joy today. So when I reframe that with people who are very goal-oriented, like, by 30, I want this, and then I want to pay off my loans and this, I'm just like, well, what did you do today to increase your joy? And if you think about it, okay, yesterday I only got 1 point, but today I'm going to try to get 2 points. And maybe tomorrow I'll get 3 points. It's a shift. Yes. Then it's like, yeah, I did obtain a goal. I did make it to that goalpost. And I do feel as if this is possible, right? And tomorrow's not promised. So if you are delaying happiness for something that's happening in the future, that may never happen. It's not promised to any of us.
Yeah, I really relate to, I feel like I had that in my 20s where I just had these like grand goals and like I was putting off my happiness until those were achieved, or I found my person, and I think motherhood has actually helped me to find joy in just like literally hour by hour.
Yes.
Because you kind of have to be so present. Things change on a dime. And it's helped me so much to really just, I think it's almost like zooming in to zoom out is kind of how I'm seeing it, where you zoom in the moment by moment, but it helps you to kind of have perspective on like what's really important, actually, what's like really bringing me joy. I didn't realize that, taking 5 minutes to make my own coffee and sit down and look out my window is actually something that brings me a lot of joy. I didn't even give myself the chance to experience that before,
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up. And one thing I wanted to talk about, because our audience is so inclined to explore their spirituality, so we're pivoting just a smidge. I find that, leaning into whether it's spiritual practices or just like letting my curiosity kind of lead me in that direction, has brought me a lot of joy or levity, or, just helps me to have a bit more perspective rather than being so in the mind and just kind of analyzing myself and my life. And I'm curious your thoughts on spirituality being another way to distract, another way to spiral, to become obsessed, to not actually look at the thing that needs to be looked at. Because I've had, maybe in my life once or twice, but I've had many friends who have found spirituality in their own way, and it's become destructive.
Yeah.
And almost like feeding the beast. I don't know what to call it, but yeah, it's just a really interesting time we're living in, where spirituality is such a thing. It's so like such a trendy thing in a lot of ways. Shouldn't be, but
I agree with that. I mean, so my father is a pastor. I grew up in a very spiritual church, and I ended up studying, when I went to Duke for undergrad. I studied religion and chemistry and biology. Like, doesn't go well together at all, right?
I like the balance, though, to be honest.
But the reason I did that was because I used to believe that, you had to choose one or the other. And now I know that two things can be true. But what's interesting about spirituality is that, so there's something called, faith and then ritual. So many people, when they become spiritual, they confuse the experience, right? How I said joy is the experience and then the idea is happiness. they confuse spirituality with ritual. And so they get distracted. And in their minds, if they stick to this idea and they do these things, they are being spiritual, but they're not, because they're not being present. They're getting caught up in ritual and the things. And it's really superficial. It's about sticking to a practice, because for some of them, they haven't completed anything else in life. This is the one thing that they can complete. So it's also become a goal. It's become that idea of happiness for them. And they're not really tapping into it for purpose. They may be overindulging in the ritual to avoid, right? So that's their form of overworking. You know, I've seen this with a lot of people who just manifest till the day
Yes.
is
Yes.
over.
I know them.
And it's like, well, what has changed, you know?
Yeah.
But they know how to manifest, you know? So I think anything has the potential for that. You know, when you think about artists, and I've worked with artists, they can either be like in that movement when they dance, or they're just hitting each mark perfectly, right? And, you know, we can enjoy things, we can experience things, or we can just have an idea of it. And I want you to really challenge yourself there. The same with parenthood. You know, I treat children to adults, to elders. And when you're a child therapist, very often you have to meet with the parent. And I see the parent who's like, I just want to be a good parent. But it's the idea, right? So they're doing all the things, but their kid has no idea who they are. Their kid doesn't feel seen. There's no connection. Because they don't realize that you don't have to be perfect. In fact, all the experts will say, don't be perfect, right? It's about connection. It's about experiencing parenthood, not being the perfect parent. And that shift is, people need reminders about that. That's why therapy isn't just one session and you're healed, right? It's so easy to fall into that pattern of doing, right? You're a human doing instead of a human being. Instead of being that parent, connecting and attaching and, you know, going through it together, you're just performing. But in your idea, that's what a good parent is, right? So the same thing can happen with spirituality.
Yeah, it's I love the way you describe that, the ritual. Because I think it's really easy to become or to continue to be busy. And then you can and now we have that layer of like showing people through social media or whatnot. So it's like, I'm meditating, I'm doing all this, and then our image of ourself is like kind of reflected back to us, but it's not really real, and it's not really the experience of it. It's the idea of it's really such a trippy it's such a trippy thing. As a therapist, I guess, what do you recommend to your patients who you find are negatively impacted by social media? Like, what do you recommend? What are you seeing? Because I think a lot of us are experiencing that, but like cannot look away and cannot disconnect.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, so I can identify with the experience versus the idea throughout my life, you know, like when you're high functioning, you don't just go back to regular. It's always a journey, right? And what you learn, but then you realize you fall back. And so a regular practice for me, not just with my clients, is to do a check-in where I'm like, am I experiencing, or am I idealizing? And I have to do this all the time. Like even with socials, when I first started with my students, I was like, well, this has to be perfect and this has to be evidence-based and I got to write the right captions. And I was like, well, this is no longer fun. You know, like if I'm overthinking it like this, then it's no longer me experiencing joy trying to educate. It's me having this idea of perfection. So I had to shut it down. But I go through those phases as well. So if I'm able to therapize myself sometimes. I'm in therapy too. But like if I go through this, then imagine what an adolescent goes through, a young adult goes through, right? And so you have to continue checking in with yourself. You really do have to ask yourself simple things like, am I experiencing life, or am I living towards or working towards an idea, an ideal?
Yeah.
And so check in with yourself that way. I used to be that parent who was like, I got to put my kid in the ballet, the swim, the piano, this, that, and I have to show up. But then my kid was like, wait a second, this sucks. Like,
You're
I
like,
don't get
"Mom,
to see you. Right.
like my schedule's
Yeah, like,
just
I'm tired. I remember one day my daughter, when she was 7, she was like, Mommy, I am tired. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired too. We just stayed home. We skipped it. I was like, sorry, something came up. But you know, you're constantly learning from people around you. Even in my lab, my team would be like, you know, we're killing it. You know, we're getting all the studies, but we are burnt out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow. So then no more studies, you know, like listen to your environment, because this high functioning behavior is contagious. In the way that joy is contagious, this high functioning, overworking, overdoing, you know, working towards ideals and not experiencing, that's contagious too.
Yeah. I want to talk about, you mentioned check-in just now, but you also describe various check-ins that we can do, the physical check-in, amongst others that I want to talk about, because this is something I try to do, just checking in on my, like, the vitals, which you describe in the book, but it's been so helpful because as a mom, like, I am no longer very aware of, like, when was the last time I had a sip of water?
Yeah.
Like, did I eat lunch today? Like, my brain is just not quite back yet to be functioning on all cylinders for everyone. So, especially myself. So can we talk about those vital checks?
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, your doctor will tell you, make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're moving, eating things that are healthy for your brain and body, right? These are all important. And I go through all of those things because sleep is necessary for cleaning out, you know, these things that build up in your brain that impair your thinking. It's important for mood, for just about everything, for your immune system. And then movement is so important. And not everyone likes to exercise. You know, I say that any movement, as long as it feels authentic to you, is
counts.
healthy. And so I'm from a Caribbean background, so we have something called Carnival every year in Trinidad, and you see people moving and whining. And, you know, there are some early studies that are showing that movement side to side actually is a form of bilateral stimulation. So that's why it feels so good.
Yeah.
You know, you see these people booty
And the
dancing on
hips.
I know, but it feels good, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then, you know, I introduced new vitals in there, not just the typical, you know, food. And with food is very important, you know, the processed foods. We know what that does to our body and inflammation. But, you know, technology, that's a vital that we don't really pay attention to. At least we didn't in the past. I truly believe that in the future, there's going to be a section of the DSM-5 dedicated to tech use and how it impacts our mental health.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're not designed to be looking at screens when we're, you know, all day long. We're just not designed to be standing or sitting in one place. And there's a center called the Stanford Zoom Fatigue Center where they look at the impact that Zoom has on your brain. And what they found is that, like, when you're looking at yourself as you're talking to yourself, it's so unnatural.
Totally.
That it actually makes people anxious. Because I know, like, because I draw my eyebrows, because I have very little eyebrows,
same.
I'm always like, wait, did I draw that right? Like, and I'm distracted.
You're like, what did you just say? Sorry. Oh my gosh, that is so real. Sometimes Kristen and I will take off our own camera thing, like in our purview, because you're just staring at yourself, literally. You don't even realize it.
Yeah. So when I give talks to corporations, I'm like, you know, older generations are like, oh, it's very rude to turn the camera off. I was like, actually, no.
Yeah.
It is mentally draining to look at your own face that much. So you should encourage this, because the younger generation's like, I'm not going to go on camera.
Yes.
And there's this disconnect between the generations. Like, that's so rude. I would never do that in my day. And it's like, actually, they're right. You know,
Yes.
like, we all need a break from looking at ourselves. It's not healthy. And also just the fact that we have our phones with us at all times. It's what makes a drug addictive is how immersive it is, how seamless it is to access it, and how accessible it is. And social media is all those things. We always have access to it. It's so easy to get immersed in it. It's so seamless now because of the internet. And recently there was a study that came out that when they took adults away from seamless internet, meaning they had like these phones that were not smartphones, they were like, you know, the flip phones, they were actually happier. Like, the amount of improvement in their mood was similar to what you would see with an antidepressant.
Yes.
So being on these screens all day is literally robbing us of our joy, because we're not engaging in things where we get dopamine and many ways, right? You're getting dopamine one way on a screen, but when you're out in nature, getting it in a multidimensional way. When you're talking to someone in person and not looking at a screen, you're getting this hormone, increase and biochemistry that's happening when you're in person with someone. So we're robbing ourselves of natural, whole joy when we're on our screens all the time. And then the last one, or the last two in my vitals, are work-life balance, which kind of feeds into tech, and also relationships. And no one pulls us aside and teaches us how to love. Like, they just don't. We just follow what our parents do and then we repeat. Yeah. No one teaches us how to be a good friend, how to, weed out toxic individuals. But having toxic people in your life, it is draining to your life source. And being lonely and not having good connections is the equivalent of like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Yes. So really pay attention to the quality of your relationships.
What are you seeing as like some patterns or common just ways people are just feeling a little bit disconnected in their relationships at this point?
Well, the anhedonia is big. Yeah. One of the symptoms on my anhedonia rating scale on my website is when you're intimate with your partner, you're just kind of can't wait to get it over with. Like that's something that whenever I say that in a conference, people start laughing because they're like, oh, I know what that is like, The other one is like, you don't want to be around people anymore. Like, you're getting annoyed when you're with people. You'd rather just be home, binge watching TV. And also, one of the risk factors for high functioning depression that I found is something called masochism, which is a term that was taken out of the DSM, which is the Bible of Psychiatry. And they took it out in the 80s because before they used to label a lot of women as being masochists if they incited violence on themselves. So it's a victim blaming thing, right? So masochists were labeled as people who self-sabotaged, who bend over backwards, but also incited other people to treat them poorly. Yeah. So there's good reason for it to be taken out, masochistic personality disorder, but there are still masochistic traits, and now we call them people-pleasing, right? And, if you find yourself constantly sacrificing your happiness for others, feeling unworthy of enjoying praise, feeling unworthy of enjoying things that you worked for, like not acknowledging that you deserve better, these set you up, for high-functioning depression because you're essentially overworking, letting people walk all over you, delaying your own happiness. And it could be related to trauma because we know that people who have unprocessed trauma feel as if they're not good enough. They internalize shame and blame. But it could be related to other experiences in life, So that's why it's important to not just know the signs of high-functioning depression, but understand what possibly contributed to it. Yes. Because when humans need to know, when we don't know what's causing something, when there's uncertainty, we're anxious, we're afraid, and we act out. We act in ways that don't necessarily serve us. So knowing the potential causes is so powerful.
And is this chronic? Like, will this have the potential to always come up? Or is it something that if you're aware of it and read this book and just really give time and attention to it and take it seriously could be gone?
It's a work in progress, because when you have developed a certain pattern in life and a certain way of behaving, that stays with you. And if you're not constantly doing the work, you're going to fall back into the patterns. And that's why I put the very simple 5 V's in there so that it's easy to remember. Most of us have 5 fingers, some of us don't, and that's okay. But I use 5 because I think about it as like we all have the DNA for joy. And if you do one of these 5 a day, you don't have to do more than 1 or 2 because that's overwhelming. Then you can access joy. It's within reach. So validate. That's the first V. Validate how you're feeling. Accept how you're feeling. Don't just say, oh, I'm fine. How are you? Say things like, I'm burnt out. I'm depressed. I'm feeling lonely, frustrated. Accept and acknowledge how you feel because people with high-functioning depression, they push it down. They don't want to feel. But if you don't feel, how can you heal and process, right? And the second is venting. So how do you express your feelings? For some, it's talking, but if people aren't comfortable with talking, prayer, writing in a journal, singing, painting, however you want to express it. whatever feels authentic to you. The third is values. And I call these things that are priceless, not with price tags. We always chase these things, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be like, I want a Birkin on my deathbed.
Right.
You're going to be like, I wish I had done things with the people that I loved. And I wish I had, supported more causes I felt strongly about, or I wish I spent more time in nature, things like that. Things that give your life meaning and purpose, not things with price tags. And then the vitals we talked about, tapping into those every day. And then the fifth is vision. So we don't tend to plan our joy. We're constantly on to the next, right? We get our kid to school and then we're on to the next task. But like you do, sit and enjoy your coffee, right? Sit and enjoy your beverage. Give yourself a pat on the back. Say, I did that today, let me savor these small moments. And then, things that require celebration, try to plan them, We want to have things to look forward to so that we don't get stuck in the past. And that's the fifth V is vision.
Okay, hey guys, it's Linz reporting from vacation, and I just wanted to let you in on a little secret. If you are getting ready for vacation or really just upgrading your wardrobe in any way, Quince is my new jam, my new go-to for everything really great quality, amazing style, and insanely affordable. So let me bring you in on what I am currently literally wearing in this moment. I'm in the bathroom in our hotel room. I was like, babe, I gotta talk about this for a second. I'm wearing the European linen shorts from Quince. They are so comfortable, perfect fit. I got them in white. I'm wearing them dressed up, dressed down, like even like a bathing suit cover up. They are just phenomenal. Highly recommend. They come in a bunch of colors. And then I'm also wearing the Italian V-neck bathing suit top and the Italian V-neck bathing suit bottom. Really sexy, amazing fit, and the fabric is insanely buttery soft. And I got it in like this bluey periwinkle color. It is so nice. I think it's my summer color. But again, everything is so affordable and incredible quality. So often I'll find like fast fashion or cheap fashion that's like terrible quality, and I just feel terrible after I buy it. But I feel so good about my Quince pieces. I'm gonna keep going. Like, this is how I'm going to like create a foundation wardrobe for myself. So to upgrade your summer wardrobe, look no further than Quince. For our listeners, you can go to quince.com/almost30 for free shipping and 365-day returns. Again, that is quince.com/almost30, QUINCE.com/almost30 for free shipping and 365-day returns. I cannot wait to see what you got.
The values. I feel like anytime I'm asked to like share my values, I'm like, I have them. And also, how would you guide someone in just getting clear about their values?
Many times people don't even remember what lit them up or what gave them purpose because their trauma buried their memories, right? So in some of my clients, their background's so like hazy. They're like, well, I don't remember. So we try to work back to that time when they were at whatever age it was that they used to have, passions and purpose. And we try to figure out what happened around that time. Was it like, someone bullied you, or did your parents go through a divorce, or was there a death? Was something traumatizing there? And then and many times we can find that, right? And then we start tapping into that slowly. So for example, there was a client I worked with who she used to like to go camping with her family, and then they got a divorce, and then she didn't want to go camping anymore. But she was living in a big city. She had it all. She had the things with the price tags, but she didn't feel a sense of purpose. So we tapped back into that memory, and she realized that, I really haven't been spending time in nature. And so slowly we would, work on her getting out to the park or, doing more things with nature, buying plants. And then she found that like slowly every day she was getting points of joy by having some interaction with nature, right? She wasn't all cured, but like it was something she could tap into. With other people, I have to use more concrete type of exercises, especially if they can't access those early memories. So we may look at pictures of famous people together or public figures, and then they, pull out the ones that they admire. And then I ask them to talk about, each person. What is it that you admired, right? So if it's someone like Maya Angelou, they're like, she was a survivor and she wrote beautiful words of encouragement. So I'm like, oh, so you value inspiration, right? Was there ever a time maybe that you felt inspired or you inspired others? So we try to use these creative ways to tap into what gives your life meaning and purpose, because when you are so busy and you don't reflect, sometimes you need like these very concrete methods. And I know not everyone has a therapist, right? There's only one psychiatrist for every 30,000 people in certain parts of the country. So I wanted to put tools in the book that people could potentially tap into, when they're working with their coach or whoever it is they work with. So they have these concrete tools so that they could tap into the 5 E's if it doesn't come automatically to them.
Super powerful. The feel to heal triangle. I guess what's the more professional way of saying that? It's the
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, there you go. Can we talk about that? Because I think, I don't know if it's kind of the self-development speak of like, you got to feel it to heal it. And I think, I don't know if people actually know what that looks like or what that means. And I think, at least in my experience, I've been kind of overwhelmed by my feelings a lot of the time, and they just take me on a ride that I'm like, I don't know where this is taking me, and it's kind of confusing. So can you walk me through that?
Yeah. So the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle typically looks like the thought is at the top, and it's this thought that you have, and it could be a thought of like, I'm not good enough, right? And then that thought of I'm not good enough, that stems from this core belief of being unworthy, leads to feeling shame or sadness or anger, whatever it is that you feel related to that thought. And then that may lead to behavior. So let's say if you feel like you're not good enough and there's shame, then you may withdraw, right? That's your behavior. Or if you're feeling frustrated, then that may lead to behavior of like lashing out, So the thought, feeling, behavior triangle is the classic model. But what they found, the researchers in CBT, was that sometimes we spend so much time on our thoughts. And if you're a particularly anxious person or like a control freak or you ruminate, then it's not healthy to spend time on the thoughts. You end up thinking more instead of feeling, right? And again, people with high functioning, they tend to overdo, overwork, and not feel. So for people who have a hard time accessing feelings, I told them to flip that triangle on its side and try and tap into the feelings. And so in my book, I present a bunch of feelings because, again, sometimes people need concrete examples, especially if I'm working with neurodivergent folks who need that visual aid to identify their feeling and to really understand the nuances of feelings, right? Because many people who don't take the time to acknowledge feelings, they have something called alexithymia, where they don't know how to describe their feelings. It's very like black or white. Oh, I'm sad or happy. There's like nothing in between. So tap into the nuances of your feelings, right? And try to go from there. Start to feel and accept how you feel, and then see how it changes your thinking. And there's a new field called metacognitive therapy, where instead of us trying to change the thought, so like in CBT, the classic model, you try to change the thought. Well, okay, what's the argument that you are unworthy, or what's the argument that you aren't unworthy? And so you're being like this little lawyer in your head, and you're, setting this thought on trial. That's how I explain it to my patients. Rather than spending so much time trying to change the thought, let's let that thought sit there and just go through the feelings, right? So you're acknowledging the thought is there, and you're not trying to change it, and your two things are true. The thought is there, but I'm just going to be present in what I'm doing right now, not trying to change that thought. And for some people, that's very powerful to like, okay, that thought of being unworthy is there, but I'm still going to continue, reading my book, or I'm still going to continue eating my meal, and I'm going to go through the feelings of it, and it's going to go away. Versus if I tried to change that thought, I'm actually getting more dysregulated. I'm actually getting more frustrated. And so for some people, that could be very powerful. So that's why, I say like, understand the science of your happiness, because there's so many ways to go about one problem, because that one problem is so different for each of us.
Yes. The individuality, I think,
is something I've been thinking about lately where, you know, we're kind of like, quote, prescribe things online where like we can see someone talking about it and be like, maybe that's me, maybe that's not. But we kind of jump to the universally prescribed solution and it might not be for us. And then we get more frustrated and then we feel like we're, you know, we can't be healed or whatever the thought or story is. So I love this approach to people's individuality. Do you feel like you are seeing more of this high functioning depression now than ever?
I do. And I think what's happening is that, you know, we didn't process what happened in 2020. And it's frankly just been like bad news after the next. You know, it's like a wave. I describe it as like a wave of like, okay, we had 2020 and then we're told not to be around people. Then we're told people were safe. Then we're told they were not safe again. And then there were these police brutality and political uprising and wars and then political instability. It's just like, well, what's next, you know?
Yeah.
So we're just kind of pushing through it. We've become so numb, you know, just from like not processing trauma because it's just been so much of it. And we're numb because there's just too much access to information. You know, we're always on our phones. So there's many ways to be numb these days. And I think that people are just like getting by.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so pervasive. So tapping into yourself as a human being and understand the science of your happiness is so important. Like you said, many of us will like see a catchy meme or a video and be like, oh, that sounds good. And we try and we're like, oh, that didn't work. You know, maybe something's wrong with me. But no, it's because you were applying a tool without understanding the science of your happiness.
Yeah.
So what were you aiming the tool at? You were just aiming it in the dark. First, get to know you based on these principles. Sorry. First, get to know you based on these principles, right? And then start to do the work. And it's okay if it's not quick. It's all about the points, right? Those little points every day. You know, not the idea, but the experience.
Yeah, this is profound, and I think a lot of people are nodding their heads off. And people are absolutely not alone. You know, I have absolutely felt this in my life in different seasons, and I think I felt a lot of like shame around it or denial around it at times. And it's just always been easier for me to just keep on plugging along, knowing that it'll probably get a little bit better at certain points. But I just really appreciate this book, this approach, this, recognition of the individuality and the embracing of the process of it, not just the quick fix and just the diagnosis and then here's the step-by-step. It's really like, who are you? What do you need? What's specific to you? So amazing. Thank you so much. This book is much needed, much needed. What is your hope for this book, the life of this book, and how it reaches people?
Well, thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
So fun.
I would say that, you know, given your audience is mostly women, like women are twice as likely to have depression and anxiety than men.
Yeah.
So like, it's not just you. You didn't do anything wrong. You know, think about your biopsychosocial. Biologically, we have estrogen and progesterone going up and down throughout our lives. You know, when we go through our first puberty, when we go through postpartum, when we go through perimenopause, like those are vulnerable pockets. 80% of women experience sadness, the blues, right? That's a lot. But then we're told we're supposed to be happy when we have a baby, right? Perimenopause, for many of us, starts in our 30s.
Wow.
And we don't even know what's happening. We're like, oh, I guess I'm just old. I can't hang anymore. No, that's perimenopause. Like, you know, your sleep isn't going to be as deep. You don't have the endurance, right? Hormones are real. So like, that's why I want people to understand the science of their happiness, because the science of a woman's happiness is going to be different than a man's happiness, right? Depression symptoms may look identical, but the science behind it is different. So you're going to take better care of yourself when you're going through perimenopause. You're going to take better care of yourself when you're approaching your period, right? You're going to be more compassionate towards yourself and not like overwork yourself when you're going through these very vulnerable pockets of your life, right? And I hope that people start to be kinder to themselves and modify their lives and how they approach life and living when they fully understand their own science.
Yeah, modifying life. Yeah, man. Just thinking about postpartum and just how real that is.
Oh, yeah. It was real.
And I just stopped breastfeeding, and that's
Yeah.
a little pocket,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about the stats with women because, yeah, if I'm thinking about the men in my life, I'm like, there's a stability to a lot of you that I'm like, how'd you get that? Yeah, that's
But once a month we go through,
Yes, of
a roller coaster,
course.
and we just like everybody does it. All women go through it. It's like just get over it. No, like for some of us, it's very painful.
Yes,
Yeah, we're
and
pushing
the
through
world
it.
is not set up to. The workplace isn't set up. The world is not set up to support that cycle, and men have that 24-hour cycle that the world's like, yeah, we got you, no problem. Go home at 5 p.m. It's like, yeah, it's pretty wild. Well, this has been so enlightening, so important. I appreciate you. You're so, I love listening to you. I think you bring a lot of humanness to this topic. I think sometimes it's a scary topic and a clinical topic to dive into, but there's so much humanness. So thank you.
Yeah, it is a human experience.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you, Dr. Judith Joseph. The book is High Functioning. You can get it anywhere books are sold. Thank you so much for listening to Almost 30. Topics like these, are really important, I think, that we talk about. There are a lot of just really amazing, successful, beautiful people in our audience who really deserve that deep joy. I think we are all, most of us, coming out of the boss babe era. So I can imagine like the trickle down effect is some of this, high functioning depression experience, but there is a way.
There is a way. I'll keep you guys posted with my own diagnosis. I love y'all so much. I see you later. Bye.
Bye.